There is also, I mean, if you wanna say from tragedy to a little bit of hope, there's now hope, politically speaking, for I guess the Gillum campaign, which I didn't give a post-mortem because I was traveling, but it looks like now I won't be able to give a post-mortem because it looks like as of now he has gained enough votes to where if the margin holds, there will have to be an automatic recount. So this is, as of now, let's see, this is the, that is the results in Florida right now. So 0.4%, a 0.5% issues an automatic recount or triggers an automatic recount. So the votes haven't stopped being counted. So that's positive. I'm going to get to Gillum and DeSantis in a little bit. I just wanted to show you, if you don't know, that right now, if that margin holds, there's going to be a recount in Florida for governor. But I want to start with Georgia because to me, this isn't even about an election. This is about, do we have a democracy or do we not? Do we have a free and fair elections or do we not? And I think the answer is clearly we do not. So that, unless something has changed since I've gone live, that is the total right now, 50.3 for criminal Brian Kemp and 48.7 for Stacey Abrams. Before I get to the clip I want to play, so you have an update, Brian Kemp, after purging hundreds of thousands of voters in Georgia. It's not an exaggeration. Those are the numbers. He has purged hundreds of thousands of voters in Georgia. After he did that, and after it looks like he's going to be declared governor, it's not over, but as of now, he's winning. After he did his business, he resigned as Secretary of State today. Go figure, right? Georgia's Republican Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, resigned Thursday as his gubernatorial race with Democrat Stacey Abrams remains too close to call. In a statement, the Georgia Secretary of State's office said Kemp submitted his resignation. The Republican was the state's top election official, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's such a farce. This whole thing is like legalized theft. It is legalized theft. It is, you want to talk about rigged elections? And I think Bernie's election was rigged during the primaries. This is literally the stealing of an election in front of America's eyes. And there seems to be very little recourse at this moment. And I think Ava DuVernay, she's a award-winning filmmaker, she said it best. The games they play. Kemp resigns after the damage is done. Thousands of voters purged and suppressed. But still, Abrams can win Georgia. If you cast a paper/provisional ballot, fight. Validate your vote at the county election office by Friday. Bring ID plus ballot receipt with the number. And the Abrams campaign sent this out, that recently, I think within the last hour or two. This is how close we are, and there are enough uncounted ballots out there to push us into runoff election territory. Hashtag count every vote. If you voted by mail or by provisional ballot, call voter protection ASAP with the number right there. And they're showing we only need 23,275 more votes to trigger it would trigger a runoff, really. Because in Georgia, if whichever candidate, if they don't get more than the majority, which would obviously be 50%, it's an automatic runoff between the two candidates. So it might be even smaller than that since I've went live. But this is how close it is. And can you imagine for a second if, this is Rolling Stone's reporting, look at how many voters were purged in Georgia under Brian Kemp as Secretary of State. 340,000 voters improperly removed. Now, of course, some of those might have went to Kemp. But, you know, if you look in American history, purge voters, usually black. Those are the bulk of them. 340,000 of those voters remained at their original address. They should have never been removed from the voter registration rolls. CEO of Cohere One, who led a review of the purged list, told journalist Greg Palast, who's been doing God's work, frankly, on these purges and has basically been ostracized from the mainstream media. Go check out Greg Palast's work. But I want to show you a clip from this morning to show you just what a farce this is. This is Stacey Abrams' campaign, lawyers and advisors and whatever, speaking at a press conference this morning. Here we go.
All of the votes in this race have not been counted. For example, this morning at 8:10 a.m., Cobb County reported additional early advance votes. In fact, they reported 236 votes for Abrams, 65 for Kemp, and 2 for Metz. We had all been under the impression that all the early votes were in Cobb County, and I believe they were listed at 100% reporting. Votes are still being counted, ladies and gentlemen, and the votes of all the voters of Georgia deserve to be counted before the now former Secretary of State announces his victory. Some additional votes that have not been counted are our military and overseas ballots. In Fulton County alone, that number is 1,000 votes, and there are more all over the state. Those have until Friday to arrive and be counted. Our members of the military deserve to have their votes counted. Our litigation team is going to walk you through some of the other reports we are hearing of folks in Georgia and Georgians around the country whose votes have not been counted. The Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, and his campaign operation at the Secretary of State's office has had us believe that there are 22,000 outstanding provisionals. And last night, I believe it was their pollster who said there were additional 3,000. They did not say there were more early votes to be found in Cobb County. They said it was just Chatham County. They have not provided you, members of the media, our campaign, or the public with the county counts of those alleged 22,000 provisionals. They have not provided those lists or those breakdowns. This is all public information, ladies and gentlemen. Public information. We demand that Secretary Kemp, his campaign, Candace Brose, I'm not sure who's paying her, whoever it is, Chris Harvey, I'm not sure. They need to release all the data, all the numbers, and they need to count every single vote. But you know what? They probably can't, because I don't know that they know where all those votes are. The final thing I will say is that overall, Brian Kemp is 25,622 votes above the threshold for a runoff election. 25,000 votes of nearly 4 million cast are at issue in this race. By his own admission, there are at least 25,000 outstanding votes and hundreds, if not thousands, of more that we are learning about and discovering every day. Georgians deserve to have their votes counted. The other number is 23,372. That is the number that would move this contest into a recount. It would put it under the 1% threshold. And if we found 23,372 additional votes for Stacey Abrams, we would be in that 1% threshold, permitted to not only request a recount, but it would have to be granted by the Secretary of State.
So there you have one justifiably pissed off Stacey Abrams, I believe one of the attorneys there. I could be wrong. I got to tell you something, and I hate to criticize her campaign, which, by the way, yes, I'm seeing some comments, the Deep South is hella racist. The fact that Stacey Abrams, a African-American woman, is this close with hundreds of thousands of votes purged in the state, that is progress. Frankly, she would have won with a comfortable margin, if not for this purging. But I have to beg to differ here with the Abrams campaign. And I also will give you a little insight into conversations I had with Bernie Sanders' campaign during the 2016 primary, where after the New York primary purge, which got very little coverage, but 200,000 people were purged off the rolls in New York City, majority in Brooklyn, where Bernie was born and is a very, very progressive city. I said to the campaign, why is it that you're not fighting harder? Why aren't you hollering and screaming about this? And I was told from some people, not on the record, but behind the scenes, that Bernie didn't want to appear as a sore loser. They wanted to focus on Pennsylvania. And he felt that if he would have, emphasized the New York primary purge and really went in on it, then it would make him look like a sore loser. Well, I got to tell you, to the Abrams campaign, although I totally agree with fighting for every last vote, it's not, frankly, you should be saying, regardless, we are not accepting the results of this election, period, point blank. You should be saying, we are suing so that every single voter that should have not been purged is allowed to vote. Hell, if you have to create an election day 2.0, then that's what we're going to do. They should have said this before the election. They should have said that they are not going to accept any result that has Brian Kemp winning. Because, frankly, this election is what happens in banana republics.